Good evening, everyone. My name is Ayana Lachey Lang. I'm a graduating senior biochemistry major and philosophy minor at Spelman College, and I graciously serve as the vice president of the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel Assistance Program. On behalf of our founding dean, the Reverend Dr. Lawrence Edward Carter Sr., chapel staff, and chapel assistants, I'd like to welcome you all to our very first virtual Thurman Thursday of the spring semester. This evening, we are joined by Imam Pliman T. Elmin to moderate a panel discussion on the topic of neighbors in the beloved community, what is an American Muslim? Pliman T. Al Amin is the Imam Emeritus of the Atlanta Masjid of Al-Islam, one of the most progressive mosques in the United States. He is the former director of Atlanta's Clara Muhammad Elementary School and W. Dean Muhammad High School, working as a close aide and supporter of the late leader Imam Rarith Dean Muhammad. Imam Al-Amin has traveled the nation and the world representing the concerns and interests of Muslim Americans. Imam Al-Amin is the co-founder and director of World Pilgrims, an interfaith organization that engages people of various faith identities with one another through international travel, dialogue, and interaction. World Pilgrims has taken over 500 Christians, Jews, Muslims, and others into the diverse cultural and religious environs of Turkey, Spain, Morocco, Greece, Jordan, Egypt, Guatemala, Canada, and Jerusalem, and brought them back to Atlanta as friends and interfaith cohorts. He has served on various religious and civic councils, including the boards of the Faith Alliance of Metropolitan Atlanta, the Atlanta Interfaith Broadcasters, the Atlanta Fulton County Recreation Authority, and the Interfaith Children's Movement. Presently, Imam El-Amin is active on the boards of Georgia Piedmont Technical College, Interfaith Community Initiatives, Truly Living Well Organic Garden, Atlanta Masjid Majlis, Elijah Interfaith Institute, Islamic Speakers Bureau, and the Muslim Jewish Advisory Council. Imam Pliman T. Elmin performed the Greater Pilgrimage to Mecca in 1978 and in 2006 with his wife, Cassandra Scott El-Amin. He attended Atlanta's Booker T. Washington High School and is a graduate of Harvard University. Thank you for joining us, Imam El-Amin.
Thank you very much. Didn't want you to read all of that, but thank you anyway. I appreciate you. And my wife is also a Spelmanite. So I've been blessed to be asked by Dean Carter and to head this panel up, to moderate this panel. And Terry Walker has done a wonderful job making things available for us. I selected myself these three extraordinary individuals that to be on this panel. And you should know, as AU Center audience and Morehouse and Spelman, that these two ladies are both graduates of Spelman, and this young man is also a graduate of Morehouse. I have history with Morehouse. My mother and my father went to Spelman and Morehouse. My uncles went to Morehouse. My sisters went to Spelman. My grandmother actually went to Spelman. So, and I grew up under Morehouse and participated in the pre-college programs as well. So, and I had an uncle that was the head of the building and grounds for 42 years. And all of that's on my Watley side of the Morehouse, and I also have a Hubert side of Morehouse. One of the dorms is named after one of my great granduncles, the Huberts. So it was with great pleasure that I could find these three extraordinary individuals to bring on this panel that we're talking about being neighbors in the beloved community. And the question was asked, what is an American Muslim? And so I have three Muslims, but I also have three alumnus of Spelman and Morehouse. Let me introduce each one of them. Let me start with Ms. Samaya Ali. She's the founder and director of Falak Productions, and art producing company based in cultural authenticity and decolonization. She says that her mission is to create music, art, and theater that pierces the veils and illusions that tend to separate us. She has an extensive and versatile career in opera houses, concert halls, and theaters throughout the states, but also even throughout the world. She has performed many times in operas in Italy, and she's spent 10 years doing Broadway shows. She's received numerous awards and accolades. She holds a bachelor's degree in music from Spelman and a master's degree in music as well from the New England Conservatory of Music in Boston. Welcome, Samaya Ali.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Next, thank you, thank you. Let me introduce Bashir Jones. Bashir, um, in 2017, I'm not going to put you back on 1917, 2017, he was elected and served as Cleveland, Ohio's first Muslim council person. And after fulfilling that term, he became a prime candidate to be the first Muslim mayor of Cleveland. So we are still working on that. And it'll come, or he'll be governor first, if not mayor. But even before his official role as councilperson, Bashir was a regional, national, and grassroots community leader seeking justice and social change for the betterment of all people, Black people, but all people as well. He played an important role in the city of Cleveland's um, effort to elect President Barack Obama. In 2008, he was hosting several rallies for President Obama before he became president, and held one of the largest youth voter registration drives in the city of Cleveland. In 2012, he served as the regional field director, organizing for America and for the Democratic National Committee. Bashir is an impassioned leader, a motivational speaker, a spoken word artist, a writer, a distinguished 2006 graduate of Morehouse College, and he is just a wonderful, very, very talented brother. Bashir, welcome. And third but not least, Sister Sophia Shaheen, who I've known, we've known each other, well, more years than these other two guests have been here. we've, we've known each other at least 50 years, maybe more. Well, our histories go back further than that. She too is a native Atlantan, former director and principal of Muhammad Schools of Atlanta, where she served in those positions for 20 years with clear vision and guidance, both for the Clara Muhammad Elementary School and the W.D. Muhammad High School. Sophia is a native Atlantan, and during the Civil Rights Movement, she served as a personal assistant to the family of Dr. Martin Luther King and Sister Coretta Scott King. She used to take care of the babies for them. She joined the Nation of Islam in 1967 and quickly rose to positions of leadership. She became a captain in the Nation of Islam in Atlanta, but also she became a consultant. This was a position for the southern region of Nation of Islam. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed in February 1975, and his son Warthuddin Muhammad became the leader and transformed the Nation of Islam into a global Islamic community and movement, Sister Sophia was instrumental in aiding to make that a seamless transition in both the local and the national Muslim community. She has continued to give extraordinary leadership and service, promoting civil, human, and religious rights and obligations as well for the past 50 years. She's an honor graduate of Spelman College and holds a master's degree in educational leadership from Troy University. She was honored nationally in 1995 as the Muslim Woman of the Year nationally. And locally in 1997, she was awarded by the Concerned Black Clergy as a phenomenal woman. Welcome, Sister Sophia.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We're here. We want to we want to get to this subject of what is a American Muslim, and we want to sort of also be conscious of the freedom movement and this goal to establish the beloved community. But I want you all to just start and take some time individually to just discuss your life and how being a Muslim affects or directs your life, and explain to our audience what you do. So I'm going to start with you, Samaya. If people have not heard you sing, they have missed out. This She is an opera singer extraordinaire, but she also does uh, uh, folk singing, and gospel, and she does the whole works, and she has now started to produce plays as well. So, Samaya, talk to us about what you do and how you have been influenced by Islam, but also how you've been influenced by Spelman as well.
Okay, well, I have to say, I think I was blessed, as a lot of African Americans are, as a Muslim, to have Islam. I mean, I've been Muslim all my life. This is how I've grown up. My grandmother converted, and father, all of my father, he has 5 brothers and a sister. All of them joined the Nation of Islam. I recently found out that my father was excommunicated from the Nation of Islam because he followed Malcolm X during that departure. Something my father never told me. My father passed. He never told me. I found out from my uncle. So like there was a split in our family for a while. But neither here or there. I'm very grateful that I come from this experience, and also I had the blessing of being raised very ecumenically. So when I started singing voice, taking voice seriously around 14, I went to Duke Ellington School of the Arts in Washington, D.C. I actually started as a violinist, and someone heard me sing. I was behind because the best singing you're ever going to get, hands down, is in the church. So my voice teacher started to take me to church with him. I'd go to choir practices on Wednesdays, and I would sing in the choir to, strengthen my technique. And so it's always been very easy for me to go to the church transition. I was actually in King's Chapel's choir. I was in King's Chapel's choir at Morehouse back in the day. We would sing, "We are blessed in the city, we are blessed in the fields." And I would sit up there with my little scarf on in my choir robe and just jamming. I did not see that it was comical. I was like, why are people laughing? But I guess it was a natural, it was a natural thing to me. So, but I do have to say, so I've never experienced this barrier. It's all, I taught at Vacation Bible School. I taught dance at the church where I used to sing. It's my upbringing has been very ecumenical, so I've been blessed in that way. And then I actually never felt truly at home until I moved to Atlanta and started at Spelman College, because I guess it was this weird world where I never felt where I fit in anywhere, and I finally found this group of amazing women who were all kind of in their own space, and I could just had space to breathe and be me. Like, people would think I would be too conservative, but like a lot of Muslims would think like, oh, you're crazy and wild. And so I finally found a place where I could just be and think. And I had a blessing of meeting actually these 2 pillars that I'm actually in this call with. I met Imam Pleeman there when I was 18. And I met Sister Sophia. I don't know if you remember the Sister Sophia. She used to come and pick me up from Spelman every Friday, and she would take me to the school because I said I wanted to volunteer at the school. I wanted to I always made it and I wanted to start a musical theater program at Imam W. Muhammad High School. And those girls that looked at me and said, "We don't want to do musical theater. We want to step." So I'm also a member of Delta Sigma Theta. I was the step master of Eta Kappa chapter. And we started a step team. And that step team So it's just, no matter what you do, it's the perfume of Islam, the perfume of the love of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to come out. So I was making up stuff for the deltas, but I was also doing something completely different. I don't think it's ever been done like that. We used to win national competitions. I'm talking about in Texas. We used to get the gold, and it would just blow people's mind because these little Muslim girls with these scarves, everybody come and see them and they'd laugh. They're like, ah, poosh. Because, we go hard, so it was kind of just mirroring my AUC experience and, step techniques that I gathered kind of with some theater and infusing it with Islam to make something beautiful that no one has ever seen before. So when I think about it, I guess I've been doing theater longer than I have thought about, because I also, ended up doing shows on Broadway. And basically, some things were happening, some racist things, a lot of things. And then you look around and you see the only thing that's separating me from these men is privilege and capital. I was doing a show, or I was doing and people's racism. You see people like that. When you are blessed to have a connection that comes from a source that is infinite, visions come, and it's an abundance, it's a monsoon of creative energy that comes out. And you see people that don't do, like, when you have a vision, you just have to stop being the paintbrush in someone else's finite picture, and you have to step out and do what your heart, like there's a spinning wheel in the heart that leads you to do what's right, So this has birthed Falak Productions, and we had a production of Amal and the Night Visitors was actually a Christian opera, but I don't see it that way because people don't know that Muslims love Jesus too, So I saw it as a wonderful opportunity to combine what we know of Jesus. It was actually an opportunity to decolonize how we see Jesus and these ancient prophets and sages and saints. And it was blackety black. Every single person in my album was black on purpose, because I want people to know that when they see these images of these biblical people, these people that lived in Egypt, these people that lived in Africa, that they looked like us. So the way they were dressed, I cut the ballet. We had an African dance in its place because that's what we did back then. So it's my chance. I mean, I am an artist, so this is how Islam comes through me in terms of decolonizing, not just for Muslims, but for Christians too, to know that this heritage, this spiritual legacy of sainthood is ours. And it's easier to see that in art, because we are the shapers of culture. People don't listen to politicians and no offense, Bashir. They listen. I'm just saying, like, you have to work for it. People listen to artists. People don't listen to newscasters. Oh, it's fake news. But people will listen to a story, and they will believe it. People rooted for Scarface. He was a murderer. He cheated on people. But there's something about art that opens hearts. And this is how I practice my religion.
Excellent. The decolonization, using art to decolonize us. That's profound. It's profound. So, Bashir, you too are an artist, but also a politician as well. Talk to us about how you have used Islam, and how Islam has used you to be a success in these various fields that you're engaged in. Talk to us about yourself.
Rahman Rahim, in the name of God, the beneficent, most merciful, man. All praises is due to the one who created all of us. That creator created all of us, every last one of us. We are thankful for that. And I'm thankful for my sister Sumaya, as she spoke about the importance of art and the importance of and how art shapes culture. Um, you know, even though I got into politics, I am a creative. I'm an artist, and my poetry, we are all walking poems, you know, and my expression of my poetry comes out in the form of fighting for justice. And the lane is politics sometimes it's other things, but we try to remain committed to that. I saw some ride was a part of a Morehouse called Lit in the body. And while I was between 2002 and 2006, in 2006 we created something called Jasmine's Cafe. It's there, but it's not, it wasn't really the poetry night that I founded. It's been on for probably 10 years after I graduated, a little bit longer than that. Anybody that was housed between 2000 2006, in Atlanta in 2006, and it had anything to do with Morehouse and AUC. It was a place where poets like artists like Janelle Monáe and Jazz Specs and these amazing artists would through and perform. We would have a jazz session, and the fire marshal would come and that came out, and I want you to think about it, that this was the type of event during that time in that area, and it was hosted founded by a Muslim, and the Muslims were there, and not only was it good for those of other faiths, but it's even good for Muslims to be there to know that the expression culture is nothing about it. I mean, that I just Islamic from Bayan Claremont. He just recently graduated from school, and it was a beautiful. It was a beautiful. We got a chance to ask serious questions, and my thesis is the nation of the greatest Muslim movement. Then we give them credit. So I close with this. To have this conversation that Morehouse and Mama love us to have is absolutely important. Let me hear everyone. Islam is as American. Islam is as important to the Black experience as Christianity. Of the slaves who were on the boat to America, they were Muslim. They came from places where Islam and African traditional religions. Okay, from right? Embrace Christianity, right? We took that. The Black church is an extreme institution people in general, and something very divine about Black people. So Islam is something that should be talked about in all college. It has to, because you can't talk about Dr. King without discussing honorable Black people, Black people. I'm gonna it seems that my connection. I want to make sure that we keep it strong.
Okay, so now your voice came through clear. You just your picture froze, so we didn't miss a thing from your voice. But why don't you go on and reboot and come back up so we can see your expressions as well? But we heard everything you had to say. So, but please just try it again. Come back and we'll we'll keep moving with Sister Sophia. Thank you, sir. So Sophia Shaheed.
Yes, sir.
You have why don't you start about this background with the King family?
That's where you want me to start?
Yeah, let's start because
Okay,
I
well,
don't know if we'll be able to get back to it. Let's start.
I'll go a little further back. I'm Sophia Shaheed, and my previous name was Hazel Jackson, so many people know me by that name. I grew up in Ebenezer Baptist Church, so I already had a connection with the King family because I grew up in that church and was raised in that church, and was a very strong member of that church. I want to just sort of lay a background to talk about the influence of my mother. My mother, my father was a Baptist preacher, and so he was a circuit preacher. He preached all over Georgia, and he had about 4 or 5 churches that he attended, that he was the main preacher of. So oftentimes we would travel with him in various places: Lexington, Georgia; Athens, Georgia; Bremen, Georgia; a number of churches. And so my mother was a member of Ebenezer, and so we sort of had joint memberships. My mother named me, which I think is important. It's sort of been a motivational kind of thing for me. My mother named me after Hazel Scott. And I don't know how much we know about Hazel Scott, but you probably know she was a musician, outstanding, and also she was an activist.
Wonderful. Yeah, wonderful pianist, right?
Yes, definitely. And so
extraordinary.
So that so she planted that seed in me very early. Also, my mother would take me with her. I grew up in Grady Homes, and every Monday night there was a meeting of women who studied the Bible and various materials that they had. And so I probably was about 7 or 8 years old, and my mother took me. I come from a family of 10. I'm the 7th child, and my mother said that was very significant. So all along, she's planting these seeds in me, which in turn they developed and they grew. So she planted these seeds, and I would accompany her to these Bible study meetings every Monday night. Older women, much older women, and as a 7 or 8 or 9 year old, however old I was, I sort of would get a little irritated with them, because when it came, you spoke and you read the scripture and you gave your opinion of what it was, and oftentimes I disagreed with them on what their opinion was, but I could just see that stirring in me as a young person. But the motivation, I think, for how the turn my life has taken really was promoted by my mother. One of the things that she would say to me was that she said my sisters laughed because I was going out on my first date with a young man who also lived in Greater Home, a nice young man. And I knew my mother was going to say something that was going to distract me. I knew she was going to say something. So as we headed out the door, we were headed to Mosley Park. My first date, it was like 3 o'clock in the daytime. So what a date. But she said, and I sort of was irritated then, but I'm thankful for it now. She said to me, "Remember who you are." And all my sisters and brothers, they were there. They thought it was so, but they knew she was going to say something. But I think my life has been remembering who I am. What Allah has designed for me to be, the path that He designed for me to take. Growing up in Ebenezer, being affiliated with Reverend Dr. King Sr. and Mrs. Alberta King, singing in the choir, being very active in Baptist Training Union and all that. So I was grounded in Christianity and loved Christianity. So I got to the point where I was accepted to Spelman, and Dr. King had settled back here after leaving Boston, he and Mrs. King. And so they needed a babysitter. And I was recommended to be the babysitter. So I probably worked for them maybe 2 or 3 years. I have to check with my sister, my younger sister, because she knows everything, all the years that you were here, what you did, and so forth. So I started babysitting for Mrs. King and Dr. King. And so that put me in an environment where I saw people from all over the world. There were constant visitors to the house. And I can say that when Dr. King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, I was in the house when that phone call came. I also was there when the riots broke out in California and just various places. They're going to Selma, Alabama, and this place and the other. But as a young woman, I really didn't see the how big this situation was, and I knew all about discrimination. I had run into a number of situations where I felt that I was discriminated against, but I could see it all around. I could see the fact that David T. Howard, the high school I attended, our books came from Smith High School. We didn't have new books. We did have new basketball uniforms, so I can say that. And I was an athlete at David T. Howard, along with Walter Frazier. We're in a book together. And so that the environment was rich. It was a rich environment, even though we might consider it today as less than, but really it was more than. And the love that the people manifested, we're talking about a beloved community. That was a beloved community right there in that school. And the goal was to make sure that you represented the best. That was what the teachers were seeking. So I became interested in the Nation of Islam, of following a person that I was in love with. And that's how I became interested. But that wasn't the total motivation, because I was very sensitive, though, to what was happening in the world. And I had strong opinions about how things should be and how things could be. So joining the Nation of Islam and not leaving Christianity per se, because my whole family still are Christians. But another aspect, and that was more of the need for unity as an African-American community. Not just, the religion was a huge part, but I saw that there was another aspect that needed to be focused on. And I found the satisfaction in the approach that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was taking, and that is for African Americans to do for self. That was keen for me, to do for self, to build on our history, build on the history of all those great leaders from the past, men and women, Frederick Douglass, Du Bois, Anna Julia Cooper, Ada B. Wells, all of those individuals, Marcus Garvey. All of that, I embraced all of it, because I saw the usefulness, the utility in what they were saying. And I very much wanted to see our people advance, not to discredit anybody else, but I'm sort of like Maynard Jackson used to say, that he was a race man. That, I'm not against this person or that group, but I'm for these people right here. So that's how go ahead.
And Maynard and his family were right there in your neighborhood too. Then.
Yes, absolutely. They lived across the street from my high school. So the high school was rich. Vernon Jordan, he had a connection, was rich with people. Two of the women who had graduated from David Howard, they were Olympians. So just think about that in the segregated South. that here's a high school, not just my high school, but Imam Plymouth High School. You know, we were rivals, but producing great people, just unbelievable. And so, you know,
Right.
Dr. King graduating at 15 and going on to Morehouse, Maynard Jackson, just so many outstanding people from that segregated situation. And so I will end my comments with saying that I talked with Imam Pleman about something I heard on a television station, the benefits of inconvenience. We were inconvenienced to a great extent, not having all the supply, not having all the books, not having all maybe the expertise. But what we had something else that was even greater than those things. And it showed in all the people who left these schools, went out into the community, embraced the community for all people, not just for African Americans, but for people. And that's, I can speak to that about African Americans. Our love extends. We're not stingy. We extend and we do our best to try to embrace and work with other people. So going all the way back to my mother and my family, my sisters and brothers, and the people who taught me in school, elementary, all the way to high school, and then on to Spelman, which put the icing on the cake, with that leadership piece. And that's how I see myself as a leader. I've tried to deny it so many times, but somehow it seeks me out, and I have to live up to that leadership role that Allah has blessed me to have. So there you are.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. You know, each of you have really opened up a lot of windows and doors for us to travel down. I want to come back to the Jesus part, but before I do, so I just, because that has come up in terms of Christianity and Jesus. But before I do, let me right where you left off there, Sister Sophia and Bashir and Samaya both are giving on this. Imam W.D. Muhammad said, for us African Americans, for African Americans in America, we are new people. Before slavery, there were no people like us on this planet. We are a new and unique social group on earth. God has created us again. We were put in slavery and emptied of our life, beaten, lynched, abused, degraded, despised, oppressed, discriminated, and disregarded. Yet not only are we still here, we have arisen as a new people on this planet, thanks to Almighty God. We didn't exist before, he said, like we are now. We are new thinkers. We don't think like white people. We don't think like Arabs. We don't even think like many of the Africans or Asians. We think like us. Now, why should the Islamic world, why should the Christian world, why should the democratic or socialist worlds be deprived themselves of hearing their religions and their philosophies and their ideas coming through a new vessel? And that is the vessel of this African American that is being blessed through these difficulties. Let's just sort of talk about that a little bit. Somebody, why don't you start? You're on mute. Take your mute off. Take your mute off. You're on mute.
Okay, thank you. Well, because I have an artist mind, when you said that, I get stories or visions or ideas, and what came to my head was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Stay with me, because or like Spider-Man was infected with something and had to overcome something to become something that's never existed before, a mutant or a superhero, because of everything that we've had to overcome. And I think that's why the whole world imitates us to this day. Every time I go to Thailand or anywhere, it's a version of our music, even though we have different lyrics. The whole world follows what we do. Mm-hmm. Our music, our dance, our language, our swag. And I believe that's because I mean, no one, the whole world imitates us. It's not by coincidence. This is definitely because of this experience. And I feel very connected to the spirit experience, of course, as an African American and a descendant of enslaved people. But also, I was reading a book called The Princess and the Prophet, which talked about the beginning of Islam in terms of our heritage. And going back to being an artist, because people don't know this, but Noble Drew Ali was one of the first Black kids on Broadway. And I feel connected to that history as well. Because it was the artists that made money. And they were like, this racism, this white supremacy is some BS. And I'm not gonna stand for it. Because they had gone to New York and they'd been on Broadway, they made good money. So these artists, these Black artists would meet these yogis, these acrobats, these Arabic Sufis, and Black people then these Black artists started to be exposed to these other ways of thinking that weren't based in white supremacy. And from that, Noble Drew Ali, through the arts, was led to the Moorish Science Temple. But we have all these kind of secret spiritual groups that were a resistance to this white supremacy view of what African American spirituality should be. So to be a part of that legacy as an artist and as a Muslim and as an African American really resonates strongly with me.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So a new people, Bashir. So look what happened when American democracy was expressed through Frederick Douglass, through Booker T. Washington, through Harriet Tubman, through W.E.B. Du Bois, through Dr. Martin Luther King. When American democracy was expressed through their perspectives and their experiences, it expanded. It became something much bigger than what even the founding fathers probably imagined. What do you say, Bashir? What do you want to add to that? Oh, I hope we didn't lose you then, Bashir. I think you pushed the wrong button there. We'll keep. There you go. What about your mute?
Can you hear me, Mom?
Yeah, well, I can hear you.
Okay, so thank you so much.
Your face is frozen, but your voice is live. Oh, now you got. We got you both.
I ain't gonna let in the words of my Christian family, I ain't gonna let the devil stop us.
Right. So we got both now. We got the face and the voice. Go on.
Good. You know, Imam, I want to say this because I want to make sure that I leave this conversation with some clear-cut things that needs to happen, particularly for Morehouse College and every other institution of higher learning. There is no conversation about the Black experience without talking about Islam. It is incomplete. It is incomplete to talk about the Black experience without having an educational conversation about Islam. In every institution of higher learning, there should be professors who are speaking. And another thing that I love about this conversation is that when you talk about the American Muslim, here you have 4 Black faces. That's important. That's extremely important that when we're talking about American Muslims, that you are discussing Black Muslims and Black people in which Muslims themselves stand on the shoulders of Black people in this country. We have to stop veering away from this. And the same way that the same struggles that Black Christians deal with in regards to white supremacy is the same struggle that Black Muslims have historically dealt with for Arab supremacy. We're dealing with the same type of supremacy. Because I'm telling you right now, it will surprise some of you the amount of quote unquote scholarship that exists in Islamic literature that is overtly racist. It will surprise you of some of the biggest Islamic scholars historically who were overtly racist. We were beyond, there's a talk right now called Beyond Bilal. Why is it that when we talk about black Muslims, we only talk about Bilal? You don't talk about the Sahabas of the Prophet. You don't talk about the fact that a black man that's more talked about in the Quran than anybody else was Moses. Why don't you talk about that? Because they wanted to remove our culture. And, Imam Ghazali, he said something very beautiful. He says, it's not haram to hear the instruments playing. What's haram is to hear spoons hitting empty bowls. That's haram. Let's talk about
Right.
what's really happening and going on in Muslim communities across this country, particularly in black communities across this country. Atlanta Masjid is special because it is one of the only black Muslim institutions. Number one, is not in the house, and number two, that has businesses and schools that's connected to it. That is through Imam Worthy Muhammad. That is the history of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So, and I'm not getting on if you live in a house. My point is that a segment of our community rejected education, rejected America, rejected politics, and I get it, and even rejected their own names. Like we were told, change your names, right? You know what I'm saying? And as we learn more about Islam, you didn't even have to change your name. But that's a representation of what we were taught as we were new in Islam. And that's why I'm saying that the Nation of Islam was closer to the Sunnah than they knew. I don't want to have theological discussions. Don't talk to me about what you believe. Show me what you believe. What actions have you done in the community? What have you done for the people? So I'm saying to Morehouse, this is very important. And I look forward to speaking to the president and speaking to more alumnus and Spelman as well, and AUC in general, and every HBCU in particular. You can't talk about the black experience without talking about Muslims. How can you talk about the black experience and not mention Muhammad Ali, and not mention Malcolm X, Sister Claire Muhammad, Sister Sophia, Sister Sumair? We can go on and on and on of black people who have made a profound impact on this entire world. I was in Cardiff, Wales, Iman. I'm in Cardiff, Wales, in the outside of the UK. They know Tupac. Now, we don't know nothing
Right.
about the music from Cardiff, Wales, but the whole world knows about our culture. American culture is black culture, and black culture is nothing without Islam. Why? Because black culture is built on the foundation of our music, which whether it's hip hop or it's jazz. But how do you mention any black music without mentioning the Muslims? The Muslims have been the foundation of every musical genre that has hit America. So what I'm saying in closing, Imam, what I'm saying is that if we're going to be serious about being an educational institution, we must teach the new scholars that are coming into this world and who will become bankers and who will become, this conversation about religion that divides us is not a conversation that happens with people of power. Listen. America provides security for Saudi Arabia. Okay, right. People of power don't fight over religion and political ideologies. It's only something that's used to divide the mass that are on the ground. We have to get out of that conversation and recognize that you can believe whatever you want to believe. Flat out. It doesn't mean that you are less than me or I am less than you. Very important. Thank you, Imam.
Powerful. Yeah. John Coltrane, McCoy Tyner, Yusuf Lateef. I mean, you can go. That's just in the classical jazz world. But the giants that were Muslim, practicing Muslims. So yeah. So wonderful point.
If hip hop
yes.
had a religion, Imam, if hip hop had a religion, its religion would be Islam. Islam is the religion of hip hop, because you will find all throughout the lyrics of hip hop, whether they're the thuggest of the thugs or the conscious of the conscious, saying assalamu alaikum is a pass in every urban section of this country, without a doubt. And that's because of the Nation of Islam.
That's it. And in the earlier lecture I did today, that was part of the idea of trying to make sure we saw that the African American Muslim is at the core of whatever's going on in terms of Islam in America, and that really it wasn't until I hate to say it, but it really was 9/11 that sort of awakened the immigrant community to the great rich history that we have because of the civil rights movement and because of the whole history that we have from slavery on through, of that history that is there in the very genes of the African American. C. Eric Lincoln would say that he believed that the African American had a genetic memory of Islam that is in this, that is in all of us, not just the Muslims, but it's in all of us. This genetic memory that God is first and foremost, and that God can't be put into an image. That God is beyond all images, and so God is not a Muslim, God is not a Christian, God is not a Jew. God is the creator of everything and everybody. And so after 9/11, immigrant Muslims began to see that they have to invest in this citizenship and protect, not only to protect themselves, but to realize the possibility of this beloved community that the democracy claims to want to be, but has failed over and over again because of those three evils that Dr. King gives of extreme materialism, militarism, and racism. Racism. Many folks thought they had escaped racism. 9/11 brought it straight to Muslims that this country is still engaged in a deep complex of racism, and January 6th reinforced that. We just been recently seeing that all of this just standing up the ugly head of racism. So Sophia, jump in wherever you want.
Okay. Well, I was thinking about some terminology or language of Imam Warfdi Muhammad. And there's some words that he has used that really touch me, and I try to penetrate my life with those words. And the words that I'm focused on now is man's shared freedom space. I live in a senior housing, and so many of the people who are there, senior citizens, many of them are Christians. And so when I moved there, I felt a little tension, but then I felt really confident that I could overcome any barriers, because first of all, I was going to respect what they were about. I was going to respect their choice to be who they are. And I also was going to, as I interacted with them, and not trying to force myself on them or whatever, but to use language and ways of being that establish common ground between us. And I think that people came to see, and the same as I came to see about them, that we were basically living through the same principles. Humanity, being kind to each other, not so much, and a couple of people did say, well, I would like to sit down and talk to you about religion. I said, okay, but I never did, because I know how that can sometimes divide us, and it can sometimes lead to misunderstanding. But I think that as I approach the human factors, as I approach, do you need any help? Let me hold the door open for you. Just speaking to people, greeting them. Every time I, opened the door or came into the building, I made sure that I gave everybody a greeting. And as over time, I mean, I won't say I'm the most popular, but I'm close to being the most popular in my building. And people bring me things. They bring me they said, now we got to get your name right now. And so, I tell them, I said, well, the actress Sophia Loren, you heard of that person, which I know they have. I said, well, you should just call me that. Call me Sophia, because because at first they said, "Ooh, how do you say this name?" So I think my intention was to break down the barriers, to show that I'm human and you're human, and we can come together on common ground. We have to come together on common ground, and I think that message has to go out across religions, across ethnicities, across whatever it is that seeks to divide us, that we all share the space and we have to take responsibility for it. I teach 4th grade at the Muhammad schools, and this year my students are focused on climate change. They're seeing how climate change and global warming is affecting the entire world. So we can't get so hung up on, I don't think I can't agree with you because you don't believe that Jesus is God or whatever. We have to expand this so that we can survive, so that we can not just survive, but so that we can thrive. So I think it's the common everyday language that is in all of these religions: kindness, being thoughtful of others, being respectful of others. We'll be amazed. We can be amazed at how just being a human being can make all the barriers just go away over time, not overnight, but over time.
Yeah, uh, well said, well said. So let me bring in the Christ part of it, because as Samaya said in the beginning, she did a play to just remind people that Muslims have a love for Christ Jesus. The Quran says that God sent Jesus, the son of Mary, and bestowed on him the gospel and ordained in the hearts of those that follow him compassion and mercy. It says, and nearest among you in love, talking to the Muslims, and nearest you among you in love to the believers will you find those who say we are Christians, because among them are people devoted to learning and people who have renounced the world and they are not arrogant. So really we have this revelatory support for this idea of having this relationship and keeping in, like for Sophia and myself, and really when Samaya said it too, that we really came up as Christians in Christian environment, and Dashia and Samaya came up in the influences of Christianity, and we've been blessed by Islam to see the very best and to also see those flaws that, as Bashir mentioned, some of those flaws have come into Islam, like this flaw of racism, of seeing people that of skin color, making that a difference in how you see a person. So may I jump in right there, wherever you want.
I just wanted to piggyback off of this connection. I just kind of feel like a silver string from my heart goes to especially the Black Christians. I feel like a lot of the culture is perfumed with Islam in an ancestral way. In Islam, we say, La ilaha illallah, which means there's no God but God. No God but God. And I have seen Christians all over the world. But only Black Christians have this phrase, but God. Oh, I do such and such. Oh, but God. But God. It's like an ancestral thing, and there's a connection there. I don't think people have kind of made. I see a lot of things like that, or like my friends in the Caribbean, like, oh yes, we when we wash, we have to go all the way to our elbows. our ancestors taught us to, we wash, we do our face, and then we go this is how we prepare for prayer every day. It's called wudu. I think there are so many similarities, so many cultural um, um, ways of life or beliefs that people don't even know in their subconscious are based in Islam, and it's the same thing. And I said earlier, like, there's a story about, when the pagans were trying to kill off of the Muslims, the Prophet Muhammad SAW, he said, go to the Abyssinians. He didn't say go to the Romans. He said, go to the Black Christians because they're like us. And that's where the Muslims went for refuge, because they could see all the similarities, and if people really knew the history. And I just think that is the relationship with the first Muslim, the Abyssinians. You could, if you knew, it's just interesting. So I don't even tell my Christian friends, like, when they do things, I'm just like, dude, this is Islam. What you're saying, especially that "but God."
Mhm.
That's the article of our faith, and that's all you're saying.
I was looking at the statistics in terms of Muslim Americans or American Muslims, and African American Muslims make up about 33% of the Muslims here, and the next highest is really the Asian, the Indian, Bangladeshi, Pakistani, those Indonesia, those Muslims. But what was interesting to me, that they were counting the Arabs as white, and I never looked at it that way, and I assume what happened is that when some migrated to America, and they were, in the normal Islamic country, you won't have, whether you won't have to choose your race. You may have to choose what ethnicity or what language you speak, but race is not a thing that you actually check off. But when they came to America and they saw that here's the choices of checking white, black, or whatever, and they looked at the circumstances and the situation, I think they started checking white.
Right.
But just like when Malcolm went over on Hajj and he realized that these people with white skins and blue eyes, but that their heart and their mind was religious and Islamic, and then the color disappears. The color disappears, and so really, I think that that's where we are as African American Muslims and Muslims in general, that we don't see the skin color, or we shouldn't. We realize that we shouldn't see the skin color, and we only see it when people are thinking that their particular shade or complexion is superior. So this superiority idea, this white supremacist idea, then I see that person as white. But this person who embraces compassion and love and faith with amongst people of different ethnicities and everything, that color disappears for me. Bessie, I'll just throw it over here to you. What you disappear from me for a second. There you are. Pick it up where you want to go with that, Bessie.
Hey, Mom, I mean, this conversation is so important. And when you are a part of the majority, it's easy to overlook the minority. When you are a part of the majority, right now in our country, Christianity is the majority religion. So, you have to be a special person to be a part of the majority and consider the minority. Like most people who are Muslims, Judaism, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever, has had some type of conversation with the Bible. But very few of my friends who are of the Christian faith have ever read the Quran. I mean, and I tell my friends sometimes, I say, listen, it ain't gonna turn you to a frog, man. You read the Dr. Seuss books. So if you can gain from that, man, you can gain from a book where billions of people, read and gain guidance from. I really feel that So yesterday I went into one of my friends. He has a church, and we were talking, and a lot of people was messing with him. As you know, I ran for mayor here in the city of Cleveland. He's a very well-known pastor here in the city. So people was asking, like, why are you with that Muslim, man? Like, why are you with him? You know? And he invited me to his church to talk to some of his people, to our people rather. And I said, before we even begin, I'm going to read some verses for you from the Quran and from the Bible and show you the similarities.
Mhm.
And it was overwhelmed. They couldn't believe, wow, that's in the Quran? I'm like, yeah, that's in the Quran. So what Sister Sophia said earlier, this idea of treating your neighbor like you want to be treated is the foundation of all faiths.
Mhm.
It really is. In the word,
Yeah.
it says something very beautiful. It says, how do you say that you love God that you don't see, yet hate man that you do see? Surely you are a liar. So when people ask me, Bashir, you Muslim, man, like how your community like supports you? I said, because they don't know me as Muslim Bashir. They know me as Bashir who paid for the funeral, who built the park, who fed the families, who was there when they needed me, that spoke at the graduation. They know me as a servant to them. And they're like, oh yeah, he happened to be Muslim. You know, so we have to get into a space when we recognize that the true propagation of your faith is not a pamphlet.
Mhm.
It is providing food for those who are hungry. It is providing health care for those who are sick. You know, since I've been a councilman, I came to the end of my term, but while I was councilman, I created something called the Imani Food Distribution Center. Sister Sophia and Imam Pleeman, remember my beautiful mother who used to work at
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Warwick High.
Yes, sir.
And so we created
Wonderful,
something called the
wonderful story.
Imani Food Distribution Center. And we feed over 1,000 people a month. We created something called Salam Clinic, where we have doctors who give their time once a week and provide health care for a community that doesn't feel comfortable in going to major hospitals. So it's not like I'm going around saying, hey, y'all, become Muslim. No. We feed the people. We take care of them. They see us as somebody that is serving them. And then they ask the question, what is it that inspires you to do this work? Then I can tell them, it's Islam. That is the thing that inspires me to do the work. So once again, Imam, I want to say to Morehouse College and everyone that's tuned in, and I'm going to really turn up on this, is that we need to have a space. Number one, it needs to be a space on campus where Muslims can pray. I appreciate Dean Carter, who I love, and I'm not sure if he remembers me or not, but I remember being the president of the MSA, and we went to Dean Carter and said, hey, we need a place to pray. And he provided that place for us. And all I'm asking is that what we need to do is have a regular place that we can pray for the Muslims, and it can be a space that is open for all faiths where they can come and learn about the beauty of Islam and the history of Islam for Black America, for America, and for the world. Secondly, there needs to be a serious professor. I'll send my resume soon, that can speak about Islam within Black culture and its impact on how it has shaped America and shaped the Black experience. This has to go further than Imam Pleeman speaking at Crown Forum. Okay, that's a great thing, and that's a great and he's one of my favorite speakers, so I know that it was impactful. But my one of my greatest inspirations while I was in college was my Christian roommate who was dedicated to his church, and he inspired me to become a better Muslim. When you are strong in your faith, you're not turned off by someone else being strong in their faith. You learn from them. You gain from them. And it should inspire you to open up your mind, right? Get out of the box and recognize that when you leave America, the Islamic world is right in your face. It's only in America where people are like, Muslims. No, go to London. I just came back from Egypt. Go to Malaysia. Go to around the world. I guarantee you in the White House, there's a musalla. There's a place to pray. People understand that. But America has divided the Black Christian and the Black Muslim but we cousins. You got Muslims in your family. Your aunties is Muslims. Your cousins is Muslims, and not just the ones who came back from jail, neither, but the ones who are educated, right? The ones who follow the path of our great leaders behind. But I really want to encourage, if you want to reach the streets, if you want to reach the poorest of the poor of our community, Islam has had an impact on reaching the poorest of the poor. Jesus was a revolutionary. He was with the prostitutes, the pimps, the drug dealers, right? If he was here, he would have marched with Tamir, marched in Cleveland. He would have been with Freddie Gray in Baltimore. He would have been on the front lines. God is not just in four walls in the mosque, the temple, or the church. But if we want to show true love for our Creator, and listen, we all got issues, Imam. I got issues. If you say you don't got an issue, for everybody listening, lying is your issue. So we all got problems. All right, this ain't coming from a we ain't speaking from a state of superiority. We are all, Imam, going through the human experience, and that's what I love about. If I could just take a second, Imam, and speak to you, you are the example. You are the example of a person who's able to travel and traverse through different places and spaces, be committed to the Islamic, the true Islamic foundation, which is a love for all of mankind, a love, and you speak that in churches, you speak that in synagogue, you have spoken it all across the world, and I wish that colleges like Morehouse and others would give you a serious, continuous platform to really teach what Imam Warafuddin Muhammad was talking about. What he was talking about was revolutionary Islamically, right? He provided a tafsir that Black Muslims could understand. And he gave us the freedom to think for ourselves. Because too many of us as Muslims have taken on the cultural and nationalistic ideology of our Arab, Pakistani, and Indian counterparts, rather than understanding, as our sister Sumaya said, that the Prophet ﷺ, he sent them to Abyssinia. And I wouldn't necessarily say it was necessarily because they happened to be Christian, but it's something divine about Black people. It is something spiritually divine about Black people. You can go into a club, okay? And I'm talking about they drinking, dancing, doing whatever. If somebody get on that microphone and say, hey, listen, somebody passed away and we're going to do it. We're going to take a moment of prayer. I'm telling you, the thuggest of the thuggest going to say, hey, be quiet. We're going to take a moment of silence. We are just spiritual in nature. It's something spiritual about us. We are the most, I've been around the world. I've been around people. There are no people that I've ever been around that has been more spiritual than Black people. And we took Islam and we made it we made it into something. And we came back to Islam after it was taken from us. You know what I'm saying? Right. And that's a real thing. Yeah. So Imam, thank you for being patient with me in that. Thank you.
No. Thank you. It's in the Old Testament, but also it's in the New Testament, where Jesus says, you shall love the Lord God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and the greater commandment. But the second is like unto the first. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. And then he said, on these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. And it's we are neighbors, we are close, and the Prophet Muhammad said he thought that the angel Gabriel was about to tell him that God was going to make his neighbor to inherit him. We have the verse of Quran about praying but neglecting our neighbor negates our prayers. The prophet asked his companions, do you know what is better than charity, fasting, and prayers? And for Muslims, fasting and prayers and charity, none of the companions tried to answer that question because they had no idea where he was going with that. He said, do you know what is better than charity, fasting, and prayers? He said, it's keeping peace and good relations among people. For arguing and quarreling and bad feelings, that's what destroys humanity.
That's right.
So this idea that God has blessed us as a people, and it's too big of a blessing to just hold it to ourselves. We have to share it with everybody. Sophia, what do you want to add to this?
Well, I want to sort of go a little different way, and I want to talk about
Okay.
I want to talk about the children and the
Okay.
importance
And
that.
before you do, let me just
Go
mention,
ahead.
before you do, let me just mention that here Sister Sophia served as the principal and then the director of both of these schools, and she retired, and then she came back and she's been teaching in the 3rd grade and the 4th grade now, sharing all of this wealth that you hear in her conversation, sharing all this wealth with 4th graders who are taking it in, and when you go in there, you think you're in a room of college students when you walk in our 4th grade classroom. Okay, so now let me give it back to you.
Okay, all right. I just want to say in terms of the children, because I mentioned that we are working on global warming and climate change and so forth, and a lot of young people across the world are getting involved with these issues, and I think that as we are working to take responsibility for our shared freedom space, that we have to put a lot of focus on these young children who are coming up, developing them so that they're aware of what their creativity and imagination can add to creating a better world. That has to be our hope, because we're not going to always be here. And so however we can find to bring these children to a new Africa, however we interpret that to be, keeping our history and loving our history and teaching our history, but also pointing the way where our commitment to them is bigger than just always trying to satisfy them, giving them the tough love that they need, but also having right-minded people who can lay a foundation for these young children. And I see it every day. I wish everybody could see what I see. And these children are amazing. I mean, they are really amazing. I go home happy, but tired. They work me, but I try to work them too. So I just had to bring that in about children and how we have to provide for them and provide for their development. That's my point.
Very good. So okay, so now we're sort of wrapping up. So whatever is stirring, we have a lot of questions and everything. I'm not going to be able to get to your questions. so but I will be able to get you some more answers. So we'll start. Samaya, go on and sort of make your concluding comments here. What you want to make sure you say before we sign off. Samaya, you're on mute.
How about that?
Mute.
How about
Take
that?
Okay.
I would just like to say we really are the same. All of the prophets. We believe in Prophet Moses, just like Jewish people, just like we believe in Prophet Isa. Jesus. We believe in Abraham. It's the same tradition. And it's just we've also been blessed with the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So and I think if people knew who the Prophet Muhammad was, it would make sense. Even if you don't want to look at the Prophet as a spiritual person, if you look at him as a historical figure, if you see what an advocate he was for women's rights, for children, for people that are poor, freeing slaves, everything, all of this is based in a tradition that's beautiful, that I think all Christians could appreciate. And if I think the love in the heart is the same. And if you were to just expose yourself to that, I think beautiful doors would open your heart, and you would see that we all believe in Moses. Like, I believe in Moses, I believe in Jesus, and I believe in so the division is none of them. I'm all of them, but I'm none of them. Because when you understand it's all the same, all the divisions and barriers disappear. That's not what I planned to say, but it just came out. So
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Bashir dropped for a second. Let me see if I have him. If not, Sophia, give us your concluding comments you would like to share. Sophia.
I want to say that as humanity, as African Americans and other ethnicities, we have to work together. Our survival is dependent upon it. We have to work together. We have to find common grounds. We don't have to embrace every belief that the other has, but we have to find that common ground. We have to work together for the survival of the human race. That's where we are right now.
Yeah, without a doubt, we're there. Bashir, do we have you or not? So God says in Quran, let there arise out of you a community of people, concerned and committed group and informed people, enjoining what is right, forbidding what is wrong, and believing in God and not fearing the criticisms of the criticizers.
Absolutely.
God says that to each people has he shown a goal. So strive together as if in a race towards all that is good, and wheresoever you are, God will bring you together. So this is what we're saying, that we race. Each of these individuals have wonderful talents, and they have been developing and pursuing those talents. And as they pursue that good, it becomes very attractive to all of us. God brings us together. And so Dr. King said, on the one hand, he must attempt to change the soul of individuals so that societies will be changed. But on the other hand, he has to attempt to change society so individual souls will have a chance.
That's right.
So often is the society will not allow the great resources that God has put in every individual to come forth. It strangles it, it drowns it. So our Imam said the time for seeing each other as enemies is out. We must be pleased as Muslims to see other Muslims being good Muslims. We must be pleased to see Christians being good Christians and Jews being good Jews, as well as good Buddhists and good Hindus and others. We want success for any who believe in goodness and who invest in this human life and this human being. We are working, he said, for a productive mind that will enter and affect a change of the soul, not just for one people, but for all people. I'm so sorry we lost Bashir on this, but he gave us so much. As Mr. Mayor, you gave us so much. I'm almost tempted to give us a note. I'm going to go. Give us one note.
I'm just getting over COVID. I have not sung, so I have no idea what would come out. But I will give you a rain check for next time.
Okay. All right. And so Sophia, the history that you shared, really a lot of these comments over here on the side, they want to know more. They want to know more. But what I will say for Bashir, though,
I've done it for 20 years.
Right. But what I will say for Bashir, though, now he offered Morehouse an opportunity to put him on the staff as a professor to really teach what all this great insight that he has and shares. And I still, even though Samaya and Bashir have gotten a few years out of being the teenagers that we met them as, but they are still our hope and for our future.
Yeah.
And we are so pleased. I can speak for Sophia as well.
Mhm.
We are so pleased with what you all are doing and
Mhm.
what those your generation are doing. We just want to keep helping. Okay, Bashir, give me a conclusion there, Bashir.
Well, thank you so much.
I already reminded Morehouse that you had offered to come on and be a professor here, but go on and give us a conclusion.
Without a doubt, Imam, I got 4 years into another mayoral run, man. So I got some time to come and do some teaching. But I really want to take the moment to say thank you to with all the people that come through Dean Carter's office. I'm sure there's no way he can remember I sat back in that amazing office with pictures of people from all around the world, and all these type of awards. There's no way he can remember it, but I can remember myself and my vice president going to his office and speaking to him about the fact that the Muslims needed a place to pray, and he made it happen. He made it happen. And in my mind, I was thinking that this is the embodiment of Christian values. He never made me feel uncomfortable. He didn't make me feel that I was asking for too much. It was just a beautiful energy and spirit. And I'm happy to hear, happy to read him saying that Muslims will have a place to pray. And Dean Carter, I don't know how to connect with you. Maybe I can connect with you through Imam Clayman, but I would love to be able to get around that. We can bring out the Muslims on campus as well as Muslim alumnus who can come and really be there for that ribbon cutting. I think that should really be it should be a big thing, because what people need to understand is that we are your family. We are your cousins in them. We are cousins in them, and we still come into Christmas and Thanksgiving dinner. We just ask that you know what I'm saying, put some turkey and don't cook it with the ham. That's all we asking for. But, besides that,
we are your neighbors in the beloved community.
We are your neighbors. Yes, sir, man. That's a better way to say it. So, yes, sir.
So, yeah, Dean Carter, we really appreciate you, and I'll make sure that Bashir and yourself are connected. And we thank Dr. David Thomas, the president of Morehouse, for encouraging this opportunity. We'll throw it back over to the staff there. Thank all of my panelists. Wonderful, wonderful. Ayana.
Thank you again.
It's with you,
Imam.
Ayana.
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Imam El-Amin, and to each of our phenomenal panelists this evening. Please join us this Sunday, January 23rd at 5:30 p.m. for our Martin Luther King Jr. virtual Sunday Vesper Hour. We will be joined by the Reverend Dr. Starsky D. Wilson, President and CEO of the Children's Defense Fund. If you are interested in serving in a chapel ministry, we invite you to email chapelarts@morehouse.edu. Lastly, please email any prayer concerns you may have to kingchapel@morehouse.edu. On behalf of our founding dean, the Reverend Dr. Lawrence Edward Carter Sr., chapel staff, and chapel assistants, thank you for tuning in to our weekly Thurman Thursday. Have a lovely evening.